welcome to another Round the Rotary podcast with me, your host, JP Warren. And before we begin, I got to say that Round the Rotary podcast is brought to you by Capital Petroleum Consultants. CPC specializes in project engineering, well site supervisions, and all disciplines of the oil and gas industry. Contact us through www.capitalpetroleumconsultants.com to see what CPC can do for you today. And you can also find Round the Rotary on Instagram. It's round_the_rotary_JP Warren on Instagram. Check that out for some, just more content and some other stuff. But I'm very excited for today's podcast. This is something I think we've been trying to get on the books for a little bit, and we'll get to the reasons why it didn't work out before. We have the founder and president of Daniel Energy Partners, John Daniel, sitting here, and we're actually recording this at the Petroleum Club of Houston. Downtown. We got a great little view right now, cloudy day, but thanks for coming in, John. I appreciate it.
You bet. Glad to be here.
Yeah, let's try to get that fixed right there. So let's get more. Okay. All right. So, John, I know that we're kind of pressed on time today. I got you for a little bit, about 50 minutes, and I'm planning to use all that. I want to hear about kind of your background. I guess you started Daniel Energy Partners.
That's right.
Back in when I started the podcast.
April 2nd. 2020.
Okay.
It's the official
day when
official launch date.
So then you and I are kind of mirroring each other because I released the first podcast on April 2nd, 2020.
So I left just to do this.
This is the reason why.
This is why.
So I've heard your name. Actually, there's been several previous guests and some frustomers that have actually like, hey, John Daniels, John, you got to get him on. You got to get him on. And remember reaching out back and forth. And I actually made the error of I was reaching out to John to come on about being a guest, and I guess I didn't hear back from you for obvious reasons, and suddenly get an email back. It's like, hey, sorry, JP, I couldn't get back to you, but just got done with a Thrive Energy conference, and I literally was asking him to, I think, record the day after that. I was just my head was up my ass, but I appreciate you coming in today. Thanks so much.
Glad to be here.
So, John, I guess get us kicked off. I mean, you and I were kind of having a good conversation before this. I kind of want to touch on some of those subjects as well. So I guess give us a little background on you and your career, where you're from, where you've been, and where you're at today.
So career started in 1995. PNC Bank, was a commercial banker for about 4 years, did 2 years in Pittsburgh, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
Went to New York City for 2 years. Had a burning desire to be an investment banker. When I was up there, all the investment banks said, hey, kid, you got to go get your MBA if you want to get an investment banking job. So I left, went to Chapel Hill to start my MBA, and then had just finished my first semester, had gotten summer internship offers from, was all excited to go back to Wall Street, and I get a call from a friend of mine who was then the CFO of a little well service company called Key Energy Services.
Oh, yeah.
He says, hey, John, he's like, we've got an immediate opportunity. Come up and meet us. We want to talk to you. And so I went up and met with them, and they were at the time the corporate headquarters was in East Brunswick, New Jersey, not traditional oil field.
Was it really?
Yeah, it's the other energy capital of the
Wow.
world. Yeah, and so I went up and had a good meeting, and next thing I know, I dropped out of Chapel Hill, went back to when I talked to the MBA career counselor. I said, he said, John, we've had a lot of people that go away for the summer, but then don't come back. They just stay full time where they intern. He goes, you're the first person that's ever dropped out after the first semester to take a full-time job. And I said,
so wait a minute. So first off, where were you, I guess, growing up, I guess you want to be an investment banker. What was exciting to do? Was it the cash? Was it the art of making deals and finding stuff? Or was it what was it?
Honestly, I was naive because I'm so glad I've never been an investment banker. They work, frankly, way too hard. But it was when I was in New York City, there was just a difference in lifestyle from the commercial bankers versus the investment bankers, and it was the perception how sexy it was going to be.
Yep.
And actually, when I joined Key Energy, the CFO told me, he said, John, he goes, you're going to kind of get the same experience as a banker, but instead of you making all the pitch books as an associate, you're going to be sitting on the other side of the table listening to the pitches from the bankers.
So what would you interview with Key for?
Well, I'd worked with the CFO before at PNC, and so he left PNC to join Key when I left to go back to grad school. And just that was 1999. And the guy that I replaced had left to go pursue a tech startup because everybody was chasing tech startups then. And so I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was like, okay, I know this guy, and he's a nice guy, and I don't have to go into all the debt with student loans. So I told my wife, I said, let's go. So we went. And
so what were you interviewing for?
Well, they just needed a body.
Oh, really?
To come in right away.
Okay.
I ended up being more of a jack of all trades.
Okay.
Finance, investor relations. Really, when you're at a small cap company, it's whatever jobs needs to be done that day, you do.
Right.
And so I spent 8 years with Key, learned a lot. That's how I got exposed to energy. Did the first 4 years up in the Northeast, and then we had a very lengthy accounting debacle, and that began in 2004, which at that point I moved down, did a year in Midland.
Okay.
So I did my tour of duty, had a great time there. My wife, when we were leaving, we were up in a place called Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
I know Bucks County.
So imagine going from Bucks County to Midland. It's quite a difference. And my wife was like about to divorce me.
Well, Bucks County is beautiful.
It's off the charts nice.
It really is. There's hills. It's very calm. It's like...
We actually lived in a small town called Washington Crossing, which is where Washington crossed to Delaware.
Okay.
And so we were right on the river and all the nice trails. It was great. And then so we go to Midland for a year, and then I knew I was going to have to move to Houston, and then my wife didn't want to leave Midland. So the people were so great.
You know what? I've heard so many people when to get them to Midland is extremely difficult. But to get them out of Midland is more difficult just because the people there in the community, it's just a good place to have a family.
It was a great place. And so my kids were 2 at the time. They're twins. And so, during lunch, I could go home and see them and get back to work. It was great. We finally got into a good church down there, and it was, we were having a good time. And next thing you know, time to move to Houston. And so we came here in 2005 and have been here ever since. So,
okay.
So my kids, they, associate themselves as Texans. I'm, a poser since I'm from Pittsburgh, but I pretend.
You know what? I was born in Houston, grew up in Connecticut, so I'm kind of a poser. It depends who I'm talking to.
Yes.
Depends which way how I'll sling that.
So, but no, we've had a great time. So I did 8 years at Key, and then left to join Simmons and Company in 2008.
And Simmons and Company is?
It's an energy only. Well, at the time it was an energy only investment bank. It's subsequently been acquired by a larger firm called Piper Jaffray, which then became Piper Sandler. So they're now a much bigger financial institution. I joined their research department, and I covered the oil service sector at Simmons, I guess for maybe 12 years.
So going from Key to jumping over there, what enticed you to make that leap?
Well, frankly, the accounting process that we went through at Key was pretty stressful.
Okay.
And one of the things that I was just ready for a change.
Yeah.
And then why did I go to do sell side research? Well, what happened is a lot of times when you do investor relations, your job is to interact with Wall Street and the sell side. And I think at that time, Key probably had 12 to 14 analysts that followed this stock. And what I noticed over the years was that most of the analysts, probably half, never called us, never came to see us. And generally, their research notes were nothing more than cutting and pasting our transcript into a note. And I was like, and then I asked some people, I said, what do these guys get paid? And I heard some big numbers, like, shit, I need to, what am I doing? Why am I wasting my time here? I need to go do that.
Copy and paste too for that.
So I left, and Simmons was fantastic, and it was a great opportunity. And what I strove to do is I said, you know what, and look, the people that were my competitors on the sell side, these are smart people. They're not dumb, but a lot of them are in New York.
Right.
And so right there you've got a disadvantage because you're not in the flow. When I go to my kids' baseball games, the dads and moms, they work in the energy community. The people at my church work in the energy community. So I'm always exposed to people who can talk about what's going on in the business. And so when I got to Simmons, a lot of smart people. I was the dumbest one there. I just said, I'm going to spend more time out in the field. So I get my truck and I, go to Midland, go to East Texas.
And this is based on because you know that previously these people aren't making calls. They're not picking up the phone. They're not shaking hands. There's no boots on the ground.
Most of them didn't.
Right.
There's a couple that do. I've got some guys I compete with I have a lot of respect for. But by and large, a lot of them didn't spend much time going out in the field. And their field tours might be going to Houston or going to Midland if they go to Midland to see the one or two public companies, and that's it. And there's a much bigger universe of people out there. And so what I end up started doing is just going out and meeting people and going to wherever I could find regional trade shows to go in and talk to folks. And
so who are you looking for when you're out there to compile all this information? Who are you looking to speak to?
Ideally, you're speaking to within a service company. Hopefully, you're talking to someone at a senior level, either in sales, operations. If with the E&P companies, a lot of the contacts I developed early on in my career were within the supply chain function, up to the executive levels, and then what happens is once you start writing reports, a lot of the best thing you can get when you write research is critical feedback. Like I love it when people write me and say you're wrong.
Yeah.
Or because then I can say, well, why? Let me come see. What did I miss? And so I had people over the years that just, they would, if I wrote something on pressure pumping or on land drilling, they might be like, you missed this or you missed that. And
see, a lot of people get defensive once they put something out there and they told that they're wrong.
Early on, early on you do, because you're immature.
Yeah.
Right. And now that I'm old, it's
older.
I'm a big 48 soon, but it's a blessing when people give you that critical feedback, and now I appreciate it more.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, the long and short of it is I spent a lot of time out in the field and had great time doing it. I think it's the easiest job in the world. I mean, literally all I do is drive around, eat barbecue and Dairy Queen, and talk to people.
And make friends.
And make friends.
Yeah.
And I do. I consider all the people that are on my distribution list friends. And so, literally I just was up in Gainesville last week. I'm driving to Midland on Monday, and it's just, that's how I roll. And it's fun. So I'm sort of, when my mom asked me, well, what do you do for a living? I kind of tell her, well, I'm like an investigative reporter, if you will, right? You just go out and report on the business. I tend to be, maybe to a fault, too opinionated sometimes. But I think you need to have opinions. And so I'll convey that in my notes. And sometimes I get people, text me back, hey, you're a dumbass. You shouldn't have said that. But
I mean, if you're putting your opinion out there, people are going to disagree with you. And
that's the whole point.
And you got to be okay with that.
That's the whole point, right? And so, I try to be polite, obviously, but I want to express a view. And right now, it's just there's a lot of people that are shying away from energy.
Yeah.
At least within the institutional investor community, they're shying away because energy stocks have been sort of a disaster the last number of years. And so as I look out at a lot of the investment firms that you would consider my competition, a lot of them have cut back. They've made headcount reductions, and they're just they're de-emphasizing it because it's not as profitable as it once was. And I look at that as a great opportunity because, these are my friends. I want to lift them up. I want to, have fun and, make the energy community fun again. And so that's what we're trying to do.
When was the last time the energy community was fun in your eyes?
I've been having a blast the past year.
You know what? I have. Okay. So I kind of have too. There's some sort of guilt with saying that just because it was such an annihilation of a lot of industries, people's lives and all that stuff.
Right.
But personally, through my lens, this year was fun. But when do you think the last year, when was the last time the industry had a good time?
I hear all the stories about the 80s at, big trade shows, but I didn't participate in that.
I've heard about X-rated. I've heard about the Haynesville boom. Yeah. I heard that was a blast.
Well, I mean, that's when I started at Simmons in 2008. I spent some time going up there quite a bit. It was very busy, right? Mm-hmm. And, it's not quite as busy today,
right,
but it's holding steady. But it's, there's just what the way I define having fun is it's the combination of the social events, the networking, I'm blessed if I go to Midland and email people to meet me. They must feel sorry for me. They're like, yeah, come on in and we'll talk. And so it's
the people. It's the
it's
event.
Absolutely the people. It's all about the people.
I completely agree.
It's all the people.
It's the relationship. I completely agree with you, and that's what makes our industry so special. So you're at Simmons. You're making these trips to the field. You're talking to people. You're meeting people. So talk to me about, I guess, the company that you formed in April of 2020, about 2 weeks after the whole country went into lockdown. Right.
The background is I had been at Simmons for 12 years. I had given notice to the firm in October of 19 that I was ready to go do something different.
What was that? Did you know what you were going to do?
I had an idea. I knew I wanted to be my own boss.
Okay.
And I had that entrepreneurial tug at my heart, like it's time to go do something. Simmons had been acquired, and it was I came upon my vesting, so it was the right time. My kids were getting ready to go to college.
Okay.
And I just said, hey, now let me give it a shot, right? And so they were great. But they said, hey, can you stick around for 6 months?
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Happy to do it. So I left on April 2nd, and right as the market was already heading lower, but it really hit
18
low
days later
in April. And when you're a research person, you tend to be a little bit prideful. You always want to say, "Oh, my research is better than the next guy." It's not, right? It's all kind of the same stuff. But I had a very frank conversation with a buddy of mine ahead of that. He said, "Look," he goes, "John, I love reading your research notes. They're helpful, but they don't change our corporate strategy." He goes, "But the events you do, the networking, all of that good stuff," he goes, "that's what matters to us."
Okay.
And he goes, "You need to focus on that." And at first I was offended. I was like, "Oh, you should pay a premium for my research, right?" And
right.
But he said, no. He's like, it's the networking. And if you can find a way to help companies either lower their LOE, if you're talking to an E&P company, or help someone with revenue, if you're talking to a service company or a capital equipment company, that's how you can carve out a living. And so what was originally going to be a market intelligence, just straight research business, I pivoted pretty quickly. And so I started putting a lot of events on the calendar. And I had done a lot of stuff at Simmons. They were great in the sense that if I wanted to do golf outings, and they were like, go for it.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do. We had created a number of events over the years at Simmons. A private company conference was something I did in New York, and they underwrote that and were hugely supportive. And then we did the barbecue in Midland. They were hugely supportive. But as the COVID hit and people weren't traveling, a lot of people start canceling events and so forth. And I said, well, here's the opportunity, because we can all walk around town with our masks on. But what I found is when I go out in the field and you're sitting there talking to someone at their house or whatever, the masks are coming off, and people, I don't know, the oil field folks, there's a big difference in what people's approach to COVID in Midland and
Yes.
Pampa and El Reno versus Austin, right? And I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but there was a clear difference, and so people were still engaging. So if I did a golf outing, people still went. For the most part, there are some companies that had you cannot travel. This is the rule.
You can't be with someone outside the company.
And that's all. That's okay. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. And initially, I was the only employee, so therefore I deemed myself an essential employee. So I said, I got to go make a living, right? Time to get in the truck and go. And so I did. And I think something like 90 nights on the road in 2020.
Which is impressive for COVID.
It was impressive. And knock on wood, I don't think I got sick. At least I'm not aware of being sick. But and I did get vaccinated, so hopefully I'm good now. But I had a great time, and people were engaging.
So I mean, you're starting your new company,
right?
April, 2 weeks after lockdown, all that stuff, and I guess one of your main sources of information is going out there and meeting people.
That's right.
And so that would be such I guess as an investigator, reporter, what'd you call it?
That sounds good enough for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, as an investigator, you have to get in front of people, you have to talk to people. And during that time, it was so uncertain, people staying at the house, not getting it out. And you're the one that gets in your truck and goes out to try to meet all these people.
And I did. And again, they were, because this is a people business, people were hugely supportive. And I tell you, the people that signed up fastest for what I'm doing it was not what I expected. I assumed the big public companies, the ones with greater resources, would be the first to kind of sign up and be supportive. Yeah. It was the private companies. The entrepreneurial folks are like, we want to see you succeed, essentially. And so my first group of top clients were all private folks, whether capital equipment or E&P or service company. And they were more than willing to help me both financially and in terms of access to meetings, and it was a huge blessing, and I really owe them. And then now that we're coming off the downturn, we're starting to see I don't want to say the purse is opening too much because everyone's very G&A focused,
right?
But we're starting to see more people saying, hey, we want to support what you guys are doing and sign us up. So
with coming into the market with a completely new market, can you describe, I guess, first off, describe kind of what you provide the industry?
So simplistically now what it is I'm writing a weekly newsletter, for lack of a better term. I thought about doing, deep Excel files, modeling, realize that there's lots of people that do that. And, you have to do something that's frankly differentiated. And where I saw people dropping the ball was maybe not putting as much emphasis on the networking events. And so I said, I don't like viewing myself as a networking guy, but we do a lot of events, and that's effectively what I have become. We still write the research note, but I will write about trends in oil service, E&P. We'd like to write about other topics within energy, but it's a circular error. I need more people to generate more revenue, right? More research.
We all do.
But I need more revenue to pay for more people. So I'm caught in that circular error here.
Vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle, but generally, I because the style that we use, a former boss of mine told me, he said, you got to make the news, not report the news. And so
like that.
A lot of times as a traditional sell-side analyst, you're reacting to the company's press release or their earnings call, and then you're writing about it. And look, make no mistake, I've got to do that too. But it's when you actually go out and see trends, and it's like going and driving by maybe a company that builds frac equipment. Are the bay doors open? Is there anything in the lot? Is there nothing there? And just sort of eyes and ears, boots on the ground, what's going on, and then you write about it all off the record. because I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, and I still want people to talk to me. But just trying to throw the big picture, like what are the big issues facing the industry? What are the opportunity sets? So it's not a lot of Excel, which is what I thought it was going to be when I left. Right. I just decided that's not what I don't think that's what I need to do. And that's, a lot of times like a consulting project, I had an opportunity to do some work for a firm. They were looking at making an acquisition. And I told the guys, I said, look, I've seen a lot of these reports that consultants write. They do all this off-the-shelf crap. They throw in a PowerPoint slide deck to make it look really fancy. I said, all you really want to do is know, is the product work or not? Do the customers like it or not?
Yeah.
Why not? And I said, how about I just call like 15 customers and just ask them, because I'm going to talk to all the decision makers.
And you have the network already.
And I've got the network, and I'll just call you back and tell you. I'm like, yeah, that's okay.
That's too easy.
It was
has
really
to be more
easy.
complicated than that.
Well, no, look, I didn't charge what the big high-priced consultants would charge, but I got them the information that I think was what they really need to hear, and I could do it in a day.
Right.
And I think they valued that. So there's little things like that. It's just, again, it's having a big Rolodex, and you have to be intentional about meeting people, and you can't be worried about rejection. And there's going to be some people that don't want to talk to me, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You can't take it personal.
No, you don't. I don't now. I used to when I was younger.
You got to get callous to it.
Now it's just like onward and upward. If you don't want to talk to me, so be it. I'll move to the next person.
Oh, believe me. I know that.
So, but fortunately, 90%, 95% of the people in this business are nice and want to be supportive.
They want to talk.
Yeah.
They want to tell you what they know. How did you go about from, I guess, it's April, May, June, whatever, no one's spending anything. People are pulling back. No one knows what's going on. People have access to these existing market reports. They have access to the internet. They have access to, whether it's World Oil or all these other different industry things. And so now you're coming in the market with this new market. How did you, I guess, convince people the value of what you're providing?
Well, I mean, because I'd been at Simmons for 12 years, people knew the style of research that I did already. So I already had an established network of folks. So they, that was, I don't think I necessarily had to prove myself to the people that knew me.
Right.
Now, I've met a lot more people since then. I had never used social media until I launched this business.
Isn't it brutal?
Well, I use LinkedIn. My marketing guys are really smart. They tried to they got me an account at Twitter. I've never logged on. They have Instagram. I've got like 5 followers. I can't figure that thing out.
I've just started using. I've just tried to use Twitter. I think the past like 3 weeks. Yeah. And I still don't get it.
I don't really. No offense to the other technologies, but I use LinkedIn. And what happened is as I'd go out on the road, I'd start making posts. And initially I was reluctant to do it. But the marketing guys were like, look, you got to let people know you're doing something. It's like, okay, fine. And it just sort of took off. And so now I've met a lot more people. And so if I do a post, say, hey, I'm going to be in a certain town, typically people reach out.
What's cool about that? It's like, when I was looking at your stuff, I've been seeing your stuff on LinkedIn and all that stuff. You're like, oh, Daniel Energy Partner out again in Permian Bay, doing another this, doing another that. I'm like, and I didn't know. I was like, what is he? Is it an operator? Like, what's this guy? Like, who is this guy that's doing this stuff that's out in the field? Like, what's he going location for? Like, why is he doing this?
Yeah, so I'm not always on location.
In the field, that's what I mean.
But what you do is, I'll go to the yard and talk to the company owner or the yard manager, or, we just did a reception in Midland. And it's interesting how it's grown over time. The one we just did maybe 6 weeks ago, I think we had just over 70 people show up. Okay. Just at the Venetia's for, wine and appetizers. And we got a big dinner in Fort Worth next week. But people, what I noticed is people wanted to get out, right? Because no one was doing anything. Yep. And so, and maybe people just wanted free wine. I don't know. But
that's always brings people to the table.
They were coming, and so in 2020, most of the events were smaller because of COVID. I did a couple golf outings. I did regional dinners and things like that. Love to cook barbecue, so. I drove my pit out to Midland and cooked for one land drilling company and its customers. Drove my pit out to East Texas and cooked for a frac company and its employees. And
that's just stuff you don't hear about from market, a paper coming out, market analytics.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm kind of a poser when it comes to most things Texan. But when I was at church, we had a barbecue competition every year, and I got teamed up with a guy, and he taught me how to do it. And so I started with a little pit from Academy. And then I upgraded to Pits and Spits, and then I went and got the double axle trailer pit that's in my my driveway, which my wife hates because the dogs go for the grease. It always drops and it creates tension. But yeah, so we'll drive that around. We're I don't know, we cook a lot. We're going to do a barbecue in 3 weeks here in Tangled. We just got a new guy starting up, so we're doing a barbecue, and anyone who wants to come to the barbecue at his house. See, if you're a new employee, we trash your house. We go to your house and cook at your place.
That's the initiation.
That's the initiation, so I don't think his wife's happy. But, we'll probably have, I don't know, we invited about 100 people. We'll see how many show up, but just beer and barbecue and hang out.
So tell me about this. So the report you send out, what size of the industry does it cover?
It's largely oil service and E&P. So okay. I'm not smart enough to understand refining and midstream. So I focus just on, sort of the dumb iron of, right. Trucks, rigs, and frac tanks and stuff like that. Generally, I'll summarize, like right now we're in Q1 earnings season. So I will do what I call the elevator analysis. I'll just cut and paste from transcripts. What did companies say? Because what I find is a lot of executives, I mean, you don't have time to listen. Most people don't have time to listen to 10 earnings calls in a day.
They're brutal, yeah. And
so, if we can do it and get the salient points out of that call and distill it so that, you can read it quickly, like, oh, EOG just said this. Okay, that's helpful. So we'll do that. That's the easy stuff. But generally, it's when you can go out and talk to somebody. Like this past week, we talked a little bit about the labor markets. What did I do? I called some friends of mine and just said, what's really going on with the labor markets? Like, what are you guys doing? And you learn about things like, we've had to go to more video-based training from in person, not because of COVID, but they had to cut costs. It's cheaper.
Right. Or
we can't find anybody because people are so sick and tired of being fired that they don't want to come back to the business. Yeah. Young people are, it's just they don't want to. The millennials, just a different mentality. They don't want to go work 60 hours a week
right.
on a rig, and just listening to them verbalize the challenges. How do you? I mean, there's just you get some very candid feedback about what's going on real time in terms of wages, the issues. Like the one guy literally was talking about. He goes, hey, my people are now putting in their request for summer vacation, and he goes, in the old days, I'd have extra people on staff to meet that need if someone got sick or went on vacation. He goes, we don't have that anymore. We can't afford to have that anymore. And we can't find people. So he's like, I'm actually have to lay down rigs if these guys all take vacation at the same time. Right. So, it's that type of granularity that you get because of, very candid feedback
And plus you never mention, I guess, the source, because nobody wants to, I mean, if someone's having a candid conversation with you, and the last thing, it gets me in trouble.
Right. I don't trade in these stocks. I'm not trying to get, all I'm trying to do is paint the bigger picture of what's going on. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's negative. And, that's the hard part is when things are negative and you have to write about it and call a spade. You might tick some people off. But that's what I try to do my best to be as independent as I possibly can. No one can be 100% independent because the people I write about are also paying me, right? So it's like you can't be 100% independent, but you do the best you can. And so, but it's just when you can go out and see stuff. Or here's a good example. There's a company, I won't name them, but back in the day, their CEO would talk about how great their equipment was, and this guy was an idiot. And so I'd go out and drive by their yards and I'd take photos, and there'd be missing fluid ends, missing powered ends, no engines. I'm like, this guy needs to go out and see his own equipment.
This guy needs to put his boots on the ground.
Right. And you see a lot of that. And so that's what's fun. And then you can actually go by other companies and see someone whose stuff is top notch.
Yeah.
Right? Look, I'm a dumb finance guy. I don't know the innards of the engine. I can't tell if it's what's going on in there, but I can see if they've got, like in the oil field, a lot of times if something's broken, they'll use like paint or chalk and write broken, bad fluid end. And I would take pictures of this stuff. So you see all the pictures of their equipment, their company logo, and it say broken, busted, not working.
So how do you find? I mean, you just talked about labor. You talked about this equipment and stuff. How do you find? I guess so how often these letters comes out?
The note right now is weekly.
Okay. So how do you find? I guess that much. Do you revisit the same topics? How do you find out? I guess what's trending?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wish there was something juicy to write about every week. Sometimes there's not.
Right.
And, when there's not, the last thing you want to do is just write about something that's completely stupid, and I don't want to waste any reader's time. So if I'm just...
It's fluff.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. And I don't know, it wouldn't be fun to write about fluff.
Yeah.
And I hope there's never any fluff in there. There probably is sometimes. But, just tell your reader, like, hey, nothing happened this week, sorry.
That's not, in the oil field, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and just onward and upward. But then some weeks it's really busy. So if I go out and do 4 or 5 days in the Permian, I typically have a lot to write about. And generally I'm going to talk about things that are easy, like utilization trends, pricing trends, labor trends. I love it when companies will let me go out and see a new product and I can write about it. And now that always brings another problem. Like if I write about, engine A, well, then the guy that makes engine B and C and D gets pissed off. He's like, hey, man, why are you writing about them? I said, well, because they invited me, right? Maybe you should invite me. And I don't try to, cast judgment as is one company or one service or product better than the other. I don't know. I don't use this stuff.
Yeah,
right?
You don't care.
But if it's new, it's interesting, and I'm kind of a geek, and so I want to go learn about it as best I can, and then try to write about it so that people who aren't engineers can maybe understand a little bit. And I probably get it wrong half the time,
right.
But I'm a finance guy, not a mechanical engineer, so
you try to communicate that to your audience.
I try to dumb it down so that I can understand it.
And so so this was started April. You've been getting out in the field. You've been doing all this stuff. And tell me, you blew up on LinkedIn. I mean, obviously I was following you before this, but then suddenly this Thrive conference happened, held at Minute Maid Park, and I'm seeing all these people, various people of different circles that I know, speaking on it. Then I saw the pictures after and all this stuff, and it was an amazing, amazing event for what I saw. That being said, can you talk to me about this? Seemed like one of the first successful event post-COVID.
Well, it worked because we've got great people in this business that wanted to support it, and people were ready to do stuff. It was a blessing, and I'm not gonna lie, I was scared out of my mind. This is a lot of money. I'm a startup, and writing big checks to.
I mean, it was at Minute Maid Park in Houston, downtown Houston, Texas.
Yeah, it was expensive, but we, people stepped up. So look, it's very simply, I said, I want to create an event that's different. I didn't charge people to go in. It was not meant to be a money grab per se. I didn't want to lose money because, like I said, I'm a startup. But I said I want to have the best venue with the sort of best attendance at the cheapest cost for the companies.
Okay.
Right, and so we weren't trying to make egregious profits off of sponsorships. And I've looked at a lot of other events and saw what people have to pay for sponsorships and for equipment displays. And I tried
space or whatever.
Yeah, I tried to solve for what do I got to do to break even? Because there are always the unknowns, like how much are people going to drink at batting practice and at the bar, right? And so, but we tried to build that in, and we did cover our costs by about 20%. So that was a blessing too. But yeah, it was not about having 30. I wanted to be very selective, like who came. It was invite only, because I didn't want people coming to this event to be like solicited by. I'll get yelled at for saying this, but like young people that don't necessarily know how to handle themselves in a sales role.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen that. People who, not everyone is respectful. Right. And I also didn't want the person coming in that just wants to go get free stuff.
Walking around with a tote bag.
That's not what I wanted. I didn't want that. And so, and I told all of the people that were displaying, I said, look, this is not about quantity, it's about quality. And I said, I told them, I said, I hope you feel comfortable like just leaving your booth entirely and walking around and meeting people. And I think when I conveyed that initially, some people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Afterwards, people are like, that was great.
I get it.
And so we've signed the contract. We're going to do it again next year. And what we try to do is make it fun. It's like, how do you have the conference in the train station when you bring in leaders of the industry to talk about relevant issues. You've got the exhibits outside. And what we did is we rented, we didn't rent all the suites this year. We'll do it next year. But like, imagine if you're a company and you don't want to sit in the audience, but you can sit in the suite
and entertain
and watch the panels from the TVs in your suite. We also had the panels broadcast on the big screen on El Grande. And so they could entertain and also still listen to the panels. And then we did the batting practice on the field for 2 different days. And watching a lot of old people go swing bats and pull muscles was great, because they're trying to relive their glory days. But it was just fun. People brought their kids.
To me, that's such a gamble. I mean, you're not only is this like post-COVID world, however you want to define it all.
It was very much still COVID.
It was COVID.
Yes.
I mean, this was when things were kind of opening up again a little bit and all that stuff. And yet you're hosting something in Minute Maid Park.
That's right. And I was very nervous about it because every week we're calling Minute Maid like, is we still going? Are we still going? Like my fear was that the city of Houston was going to shut us down.
Well, I hate being this way, but how come you kept on moving forward versus saying, you know what, there's just too many unknowns, too many variables. Let's just wait a little bit. Let's push it.
No, we had Dare to be great. We'll just go do it.
Okay.
Because my view is, look, if you're worried about COVID, I'm not here to judge you for being worried about COVID. Don't go.
Yeah, you're right.
Don't go. Yeah. And we tried to encourage people to wear masks. We had plenty of hand sanitizer around, but be a grown up. use good judgment.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Do the best try to follow the protocols as best you can, but move forward. And I think the people were just ready to get out and do stuff again. And what I also noticed too, JP, is that when you, because I had been doing events all during 2020, whether it be Midland or Oklahoma, golf outings.
And these were smaller events.
Smaller, but you would have, 30, 50 people, various things. People were still doing stuff last year, right? And so I thought, well, hey, there's going to be a contingent of people that will want to do it. And sure enough, they did. But what we did see is it was a term I never heard of when I started this job. My marketing guy said FOMO, John, FOMO. I was like, what the hell is FOMO?
I had FOMO from the Thrive conference.
Okay, so I didn't know what the hell that was. And he's like, John, it's fear of missing out. I said, okay, I get it. And we went from about 500 registered attendees, maybe 8 to 9 days before the event. We cleared just over, I think we hit like 1,200. Everybody started coming in. And there were some companies that didn't want to sponsor because of COVID. And then they start seeing their competitors sponsoring. They call it, all right, we got to do something. And so we got lucky. That was the blessing, is that last week people just started coming in. And so, and the good news is that it went well. And people want to go back. At least that's what they're telling me.
If it stayed at 500, do you think you'd be doing a Thrive 2?
Would I do a Thrive 2?
No. Let's say it's 500. Competition was getting in and all that stuff. Like, how would that have changed your feeling on, I guess, rolling it out again next year or this year?
It might change the beer we buy, but no, we would still do it because I believe the business is going to get better, and I believe the wherewithal for companies to spend money is going to go up, not dramatically, but the business is getting stronger. And people need to have good events. Yeah. And so, I would still do it. We're going to cap attendance. We're not trying to be OTC. We don't want 100,000 people there. We set out a cap of 2,000 people, and we're going to live by that. Okay. And so it's not,
John, tell me about it. We got in this conversation before we got on, and something that we discussed, and I completely agree with you, and I can totally echo this, and I love hearing this from someone in your situation. That networking, okay? A lot of times people go to these OTC things, they think it's networking, but you have a very, you and I have a very, I guess, targeted approach. It has to be meaningful, purposeful, and strategic. So can you talk to me, I guess, your thoughts on successful networking and what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, so it's you want everybody to benefit if they go to an event. So let's use a golf outing as an example. The ideal situation for me is if I put on one of my golf outings, and I do 2 or 3 a year. Ideally, you want to have an E&P executive, a service executive, a capital equipment executive, and then maybe someone in the financial community. That would be ideal. Doesn't happen a lot. I find a lot of it's certain segments of that group don't like to golf as much as other segments. Yep. But you want everyone to have that benefit. Or if I do a networking dinner, to make sure it's not just a bunch of service folks or just a bunch of cap equipment or just a bunch of bankers, because then you can still have fun, but no one's really gotten the value out of it. And so you really need to have, it takes a village. Everybody's got to participate, and you got to do things in such a way that it's not threatening. And you want to have like-minded people in the room
where people can let down their guard and actually
you do, 'cause
open up a little bit.
It's like, here's an example. When you there's nothing worse than if you are sitting up on a panel. This just sounds awful, but you finish your speech and then 40 people attack you with their business cards, right? I was like that when I started out my career. Oh, yeah. So, and that's why I don't want young John Daniel coming to my event, right? I want old John Daniel.
Little seasoned, has their network.
Because I don't want that speaker to say, man, all I did was get assaulted after I came off the podium. So I try to make sure that doesn't happen. I mean, I don't put like a warning, like if you come up to the podium, you're going to never be invited back. But I want people that are going to this event, I want to know them. Yeah. Right? Because if I know them, I know I'm going to invite respectful people.
But also people think at events, you got to open up to everyone, you got to just numbers, sponsorships. But however, if it's your thing, I feel like you can kind of control how you want to swing it.
Absolutely.
Like you can control the quality, you can control the noise.
That's right. There's a few things that I'll be politically correct and refrain from saying, on a podcast. But yes, there are certain things that I will do to make sure that we have the best attendance.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And most respectful people.
Did you realize that this whole networking events and putting these social functions on was going to be as much part of your business as a market newsletter?
Not really.
And so how did you realize, okay, I need to start putting more, or how do you put more focus into that?
Well, it's again, it wasn't the feedback came from industry contacts who said, and I think I may have mentioned this earlier, but they like the research note, but it doesn't necessarily change their strategy. So they want to get it. They like the market color, but it's the ability to meet new customers or just people that might benefit them from a professional standpoint.
Right.
And so then I was like, well, shit, if that's what I got to do to get paid, then let's go have a good time. And again, simultaneous with that, you've got companies that are cutting back all of their events. Some of it's under the notion of it's being COVID. In other cases, I just wonder if some of these events will ever come back in terms of what the investment community was doing. And so, we've got our big events, which is the Thrive and the barbecue in Midland, and you'll start seeing more posts about that on LinkedIn shortly.
How'd you pick Thrive, that name?
Well,
I'm always curious about how events are named.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to see if I say it this way, it's going to sound like I'm trying to trash somebody, and I'm not.
Okay, well, we can skip it.
I'll tell you offline.
Okay.
But there is a reason for that name. But simplistically, I want the industry to thrive, right? And that's what it is. But there's a more specific reason behind it, which we can share.
We can sidebar that in a little
bit. Sidebar that. But that's what we chose. And
I've always discussed this. I mean, during this whole pandemic and all this stuff, these industry events not happening, the AD fishing tournament not happening, the Fin for Feather casino, not whatever. I do other events besides the AD. Yep. But anyway, you hear a lot of people just waiting for these things to come back online. Oh, I'm just waiting for this to come back online. And I've started preaching that you got to come up with your own thing. Right. You got to come up with your own thing to network, whether it's, you, one other salesperson and 3 customers, right, or it's you and 3 other salespeople, and you sit there and you talk about what's going on in the industry and all that. But don't wait for the industry to dictate your networking events.
No. Yeah, you have to.
Have you always been that way? Where it's like you kind of create your own circumstances?
I try to. I've tried to do it more later on in my career when you have more self-confidence. Right. Early on, I don't think I ever would have done this type of stuff, but now I like I said, you just roll with it. And but you have to be, I think, different as you can be. Because look, the Thrive event is great, but I don't want to be 5 years from now. Everyone says, "Man, that's a stale conference. It's old."
Right.
And you hear that a lot about some of these events that we go to and so, will it always be, Thrive, and will it always be at the same venue? I don't know, but I got to make sure that people want to go there.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd rather have people wanting to go that can't get in than everybody in the world going.
That's a much better problem.
That's a good problem to have. And I love everybody for the most part, but I want to be, I want to make sure the people that go get value out of it. And so we'll do, and by the way, some people don't like big events, and so therefore we do the smaller events. And we do, like we talked earlier, we do the receptions in Midland and Fort Worth and Oklahoma City, and I try to have a little theme to it. So, like we're doing a steak and wine dinner at Del Frisco's next week.
The one in Fort Worth?
In Fort Worth.
By the way, that is one
I
of the
love that place.
So I always feel like I'm going to walk in there with like a 6-shooter and I'm going to shoot someone from over the balcony and they're going to fall down. I love that place.
It's great. So we're going to be in the wine room next week. And then the following month, we're doing, we're renting a suite up at the Coors Field, going to take people out to a baseball game in Denver. And then in July, we do our steak and baseball event in Oklahoma City. I'm a big fan of Mickey Mantle Steakhouse in OKC.
I've heard about that place.
It's really good. The peppercorn steak is the best. And so I go there and we'll have dinner and then walk over to the minor league baseball game across the street. So there's those types of events. And then, we've got an event. We've got a lot of stuff on the calendar.
How are you going to manage? So it seems like the newsletter you set out, it's been very well received. We have mutual people that we don't even know that they're mutual people that have spoken very highly about it. I've seen it everywhere. I've seen this stuff. Your conferences are killing it. Your events are killing it. How are you going to manage, I guess, the growth once things start picking up again at a faster pace?
Well, we have, so it's not just me. I've got 2 other partners. We've just hired a new gentleman. So so the first partner, Bill Austin, he joined me May, June timeframe. Had been in the industry doing corporate development, M&A. Brought him on. He was employee number 2, partner number 2. The next person was a guy, Sean Mitchell. I worked with him at Simmons. He had been at Simmons for 20 years, and he came on in November. We brought on Mary Helen Norman. She's sort of our corporate development, everything. She kind of runs the office. And then the last person just came on board on yesterday. Yeah, Bob Stanton.
And you got to trash his house.
We're going to trash his house later this month. And so there are 5 of us now, but we get a lot of help. So I remember like when I've made so many mistakes, and I mentioned this on another podcast about a year ago. But like,
what do you mean, sorry? I don't care if you're on another podcast.
But like when I started my company, like stupid stuff like get someone who signs up for research and they say, "Well, I need a W-9." I was like, what's a W-9?
Right. And
then when I did the Thrive conference, some of these big companies were like, "Well, where's your agreement?" I was like, "What agreement? Like, don't you have a contract or an agreement for this?" I said, I better get one. Can you send me one?
Trying to figure this shit out myself.
You just figure it out as you go. And that's the best. So many of these companies, probably should have said, this guy's an idiot and there's no way we want to go to this thing. But instead, their marketing department's like, right, here's some contracts. This is how we help you. This is what you need to do. These are things to be paying attention to.
So you're comfortable with the growth?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I get nervous every now and then, but I'm having a blast. And we'll figure it out. And if we make a mistake, so be it. Onward and upward. And so we're just, it's a big whiteboard, and we're going to go have fun.
I like that.
So that's the best part. I got a few more minutes.
You got more minutes. Do you have anything you'd like to bring up to the listeners out there? Kind of listen about your newsletter, where they can find it, or a plug, or just bring some general.
Well, we would love to have more subscribers. My email's jd@danielep.com. Please.
We'll put that.
Send me a note. That would be great. Because look, the only way you can do this is with the support of the industry, right? And so, every little penny, nickel, dime helps.
And yours is kind of what I'm hearing from you and what we talked about before. Yours is different because it's not this copy and paste. It's not going on these websites.
There is some copying and pasting, but
there's also, yes. I mean, on your website, it's in-basin trips.
Yeah, that's a lot of what we do. That's right. And so I'd like to think there's a value to it.
Right.
People are signing up, so it tells me that some people see there's a value to it. But it's also how you engage with us too. I mean, so like we've got some companies that sign up at a fairly high level, and E&P company ABC will, they'll engage me once a quarter, get on the phone. Hey, what's going on in the service market, right? Or frac company will have me come in and talk to their board of directors. It's really up to the subscriber to try to leverage what we're doing. Okay. And so some people just are great and they just, here's a check and just send me your note. That's okay. And then there's others where it's much more involved.
I really dig the fact you're going out in the field, you're talking to people, and again, I love the people in this industry too. That's what makes our industry so special.
That's right.
And unique.
Yes, and the personalities are fantastic. So
they are. I think we're probably coming up on time here. It's 2 minutes before you gotta.
2 minutes before you head out. Got to head out and look at new technology.
Really? That's an afternoon for you?
I'm going up to look at a factory here on the northwest part of town. I don't really know what I'm going to see.
Northwest, okay. All right.
But the major OEM emailed me and said, hey, we want you to come up and look at something. I was like, okay.
So is that your schedule? Just doing these site visits and talking to people and just how do you know what's pertinent information through these discussions? Is that just your experience?
I think it's more now. It's probably more experience, and or maybe in the course of a discussion with one company, they reference something that's going on, and that gives me a lead to go ask questions to the next company. It's kind of like putting together a puzzle.
Okay. And you're working with a deadline too.
Well, I mean, I'm my own boss, but which is nice.
But if it's a weekly subscription.
Yeah. So but that's. Yes. I mean, like if I'm going to go, let's say I go see this company today, mm-hmm. and let's say it's something that I'm going to write about. I don't necessarily have to have that comment in this Sunday's note. I might put it next Sunday because I'm going to hear some things. I'm going to go back, I'm going to think about it, and then I'm probably going to call them up and say, okay, what does this mean? What did you mean by that?
Okay.
And then follow up. The Sunday note, that's just, I don't have much of a life on the weekends. I just sit at home and write. And
with both your kids in college,
they're in college.
Not that bad.
Yeah, no, they're having a blast, and I wish I was back in college. But they're having fun.
That's a different podcast.
Well, that's for any of the listeners who have got kids at UVA. My son goes there. In October, I'm driving my smoker up to UVA to cook for his fraternity house. My daughter's a vegan, so she probably doesn't want barbecue. But if she wants me to take the smoker to her college and cook for someone, I'll do that too. But yeah, so we'll be doing that.
John, I appreciate you coming in and taking the time to do this, and we'll have you on again, I'm sure. I enjoyed this. I love how what you're doing for our industry. You're not only bringing people back out, you're boots on the ground. You're doing in-basin trips. You're talking to people. You're making these connections, and you're bringing the industry a little bit smaller, which I love.
Trying to.
I love that. And I think the events that you've been putting on, I've heard nothing but amazing things. And it looks like your first event out of the gate, Thrive, crushed it. And I'm super.
Come to Midland on September 30th for the barbecue.
Okay. All right. Well, I might have to join you there. And I, again, appreciate everything. I wish you continued success. And everyone, this is, again, John Daniel, the founder of Daniel Energy Partners. And if you want to touch base with him, you can reach out to him on LinkedIn, shoot him a note, and talk to him, and go to their website as well, which is
DanielEP.com.
DanielEP.com. Check it out. Just kind of get more information. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
You bet.